series. My name is Oluwayomi Habe Gold. I am the Communication and Digital Coordinator of Fat Corner Project. Today's topic is COVID-19's impact in education in Nigeria. Now, I would like to call on Mr. Boboye Adeniyi, who will be moderating today's event. Mr. Boboye, you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jami, for the introduction. Once again, my name is Boboye Adeniyi Oluwafemi, and I will be your host, the moderator of today's event. We'll be looking at the impact of COVID-19 on education in Nigeria. And just to give a brief overview of what we are actually trying to talk about, just before I introduce our panels who will be doing justice to today's discourse. As education, as we all know, has been one of the hardest hit sector by COVID-19 pandemic, which are estimated 1.53 billion learners out of school, and a total of 184 countrywide school closures. So this is actually impacting around 87% of the world's total enrolled learners. So dropout rates across the globe are likely to rise as a result of this massive disruption to education access. Like other critical needs such as health, education cannot be neglected, as it will have a detrimental effect on every sector of the economy, because education is a key driver of the economy. So coming back to Nigeria, we see in Nigeria, the story of our out-of-school children has long been a well-documented reality in Nigeria, with about 13.2 million, according to the last data that was gathered, school-age children out of school, which is the highest in the world. So many children are currently are not in school due to factors such as poverty, gender gaps, religion and regional factors, among others. So this situation is getting worse, with the temporary shutdown of all schools in Nigeria, effective 23rd March 2020. That was when the total lockdown was approved by the federal government in a bid to contain the spread of coronavirus. On the 29th of June 2020, the federal government of Nigeria announced plans to reopen schools only for students in graduating classes like primary 6, JSS3, SS3 from August 3rd. To enable the students to prepare for their examinations. However, the FG has since backtracked this earlier decision, saying that because based on the recommendation of the experts, that it is not safe to open school now. And today we'll be looking at the impact of this COVID-19 education in Nigeria and what the government and relevant stakeholders must put in place if we are to go ahead with this school reopening plan, or stick to the current decision of the government to halt this particular decision that they earlier made, so that we don't cause so much interruption to education in the country as much as we could. So to do justice to this topic, I have here with me, starting with Dr. Peter Imwesi. Dr. Peter Imwesi is a molecular neuroscientist and research fellow at the University of Aberdeen in UK. And also I have Dr. Rotimi Fasimoye, who is also a visiting research fellow with the Medical Research Council, I beg your pardon, UK. And he works on how the dynamics of protein affect diseases. Also, we have Dr. Gideon Oguneye, who is a lecturer at the Department of Computer Science at the University of Mbagogo. He also was a doctor of philosophy in computer science from the University of Aberdeen. So without much ado, I would like to put it forward to you, Dr. Gideon. You are an educationist, you are a lecturer, you've worked in the educational sector for some years now. So what are the new challenges that COVID-19 has created in Nigeria in the educational sector? I want your general perspective on this.
First and foremost, let me start by saying that Nigerian educational system was in crisis before COVID-19 pandemic. The country has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. Children between the ages of 5 and 14 not being educated due to poverty, gender gap, and crisis in the northern part of the country. Nigeria contributes approximately 20% of the total global out-of-school children. The schools in the country are overcrowded, dilapidated, and ill-equipped. And we also have teachers who are often not trained and are not paid enough. So all these challenges are there. Over the years, the government has not made sufficient funding available for education in the country. And with COVID-19 COVID-19 pandemic coming, it has compounded the problem. So we now have disruption to educational activities in the country for the past 4 months. Many children are unable to continue are unable to access the remote learning processes that have been put in place by some schools in some states. So what that has caused is that the implication of all this is that if the country, the government, and all the stakeholders in the education sector fail to salvage the situation, we will have more children drop out of schools. We will have more families unable to return their children to school because they are facing harsh conditions as a result of harsh economic conditions as a result of this pandemic. So in the course of the discussion today, I'll be talking about how the government needs to salvage the situation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon, for that impressive opening. I would like to hear what Dr. Rotimi has to say about this. We want you to hear your own perspective regarding the challenges that COVID-19 has created and the one that is likely to also create on the educational sector.
Thank you very much. Also, I'll first of all say I want to appreciate you for having me on the program. And without much ado, actually, I want to start from where Dr. Gideon stopped. So the issue is we already know that our education sector it's problematic with the way things are. I just think this COVID-19 is not really going to bring anything new that we don't know, but it's only going to bring to forefront what we already know. But we've been trying to pull it down. We don't want to talk about it. So for me, I think there's a positive. I'm an optimist, so I try to look at a cup half full and not half empty. So I think for me, it's more or less like an opportunity for us to discuss what has been going on. And this is an avenue for us also to profile local solution, because I would like to say something. Most countries are already having a way of tackling this problem of how this COVID-19 is going to affect their educational system, but they have good structures whereby they could move ahead with whatever solution they've brought ahead. The problem now is we tend to want to copy what they are doing, but the thing is we don't have the structure that they have, and when we copy what they are doing, it's not going to work for us. So now I think with this pandemic going on, we are going to start thinking locally and start thinking of how we can use our own not so good structure to benefit us in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that opening remark. And from what you have said, I want to take a cue from that, and that will lead me to the next. I want Dr. Peter to now come in now, but before you come in, I wanted to situate it also in the context of getting a local solution and the problems that we are facing. And then from what Dr. Rotimi said, I think he's actually talking about local-made innovation that can help drive as a response to sustaining education in this particular time that we are. So I would like your general view on COVID to also look at that perspective, Dr. Peter.
Thank you, the moderator, and thank you for inviting me here today. I think Dr. Fasemoye and Dr. Gideon have sort of done justice to this particular topic already in terms of the opening. Because when I got this invitation initially, I was trying to think about is Nigerian education actually impacted by COVID? And after a thorough examination, I can see that the three of us, or almost everyone here, we are actually on the same page that even before the COVID-19 and the pandemic itself, Nigerian education was already in, I would say it was already in comatose from the very word go. So we do know already that we have a challenge ahead of us already. And like I said a few hours ago, I was saying that there's a clear difference between going to school when it comes to going to school activity and getting educated. So what we have in Nigeria is that we are going to school. So we have a going to school activity, not the education itself. So our people are not getting the proper education they need. So why the outcry now that because the federal government are saying that WAEC should be cancelled, and because of that, people are now taking to the social media platform and yelling and screaming of the federal government decision. Whereas we all know clearly that Nigerian university, none of them, we have about 175 universities in the country. None is among the first 1,000 universities in the world. Even in Africa, we are nowhere. So the problem is there. Now, back to the question you asked on how to look for local solution. Basically, we can't fix the issue right now. So whatever solution I'm going to prefer right now are going to be more on the long-term and consistent efforts in addressing these issues. And number one is retraining of our academic staff. So I'm going to dwell at the level of the tertiary. So we do know that our tertiary institutions are not well equipped. That was why in the first instance, when COVID-19 broke out, we could not respond effectively. So the first thing is retrain all of our academic staff to match up with their colleagues around the world. And at the same time, we need to have this business-centric approach. So I'll give you a classical example. If you've schooled in the UK, you will know that UK, when it comes to education, it is real business. So the way a non-academic staff will address a student online and in physical reality is more like a customer relationship approach. Whereas in Nigeria, you have non-academic staffs who are demigods. What they say is final and that is it, and no one says anything else. So we need to take our education system on the platform of business and not just education. So I will stop there for now.
Thank you so much for that impressive opening. However, listening to what you have said, three things actually that I can deduce from that. You're talking about existing challenges such as lack of funding for teachers training and retraining, lack of commitment towards, because we don't have the equipment, like you have also said, that we need to also invest in equipment. And then also you said something about the culture of education has to change from just to more of a business-centric style, whereby you treat the student as like your client. We now want to go to to Dr. Gideon's, pardon me. Looking at what Dr. Peter has said, because there are narratives out there, people believe that education should be the primary responsibility of governments, and that if we should turn it into business, in a country where poverty, unemployment is high, if you turn it into a business, don't you think that the marginalization will just keep increasing and that gap might not shrink anytime soon? That is why, because you are also on the issue of retraining, on the issue of funding of government schools. These are problems these are challenges that are confronting the education sector. I would like you, Dr. Gideon, especially being a lecturer, to talk about some of these challenges in that particular light, and then what is government doing right now, and what can they do to, because I don't want us to just point fingers at what they haven't done. We should rather also talk about what they can do. Perhaps somebody is watching or listening who will actually do something to actually improve what is on ground. So Dr. Gideon, I would like you to quickly talk about these items on the issue of funding and then turning education into business. Do you think can it help address this challenge of massive number of students that are out of school? Can it help to change the cultural narratives of some religion background that affect enrollment especially in the northern Nigeria? Would this be an important tool in changing this particular trajectory for us as a country?
Thank you very much, Mr. Boboye. I agree with Dr. Peter that we must start doing things differently. It can be business as usual, because at the moment, the schools don't have the technology, the facilities to take care of 46 million students that are affected. These teachers don't have the skills and the facilities to deliver learning activities in a way that will make it a functional system. So we have to start looking at increase in budgetary allocation to education. I want to let you know that Nigeria has almost the lowest contribution to education in Africa. I mean, budgetary allocation to education. And governments have to take a responsibility to increase budgetary allocation so that we can put these schools in proper shape. Also, we have to encourage public-private partnerships. So we have to start bringing private enterprise organizations into funding of education. And this is important because at the moment, Nigeria is already behind in preparing its young people for the workplace of the future. And the effect of this pandemic has further compounded that problem. So for us to be able to have a pool of young adults that have the required skills to function in this current fourth industrial revolution, we have to increase educational spending. We have to increase budgetary allocation to education. We have to increase funding from the private organization to education so that we can focus on two major things. Number one is improve the quality of the education, and number two, to make it more accessible, most especially for the children of the poor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon, for that incisive contribution. So to follow that up, still on the way forward on some of these challenges. I know because we cannot separate innovation from solving problems in our modern world now. So that will take me back to Dr. Peter. What kind of innovation should Nigeria seek in addressing some of these challenges?
Thank you. When it comes to innovation, there are a number of areas we could look into. So number one, I've been an advocate for the fact that we do have the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, which is TED Fund, where we sponsor our lecturers out of Nigeria to different parts of the world to get the required skills as far as masters and PhD is concerned. Now, when these people return back to the country, we find it difficult for them to apply what they've learned, to apply same skills back home. So I'll give you a typical example. So my PhD was in molecular neuroscience. So it is clearly that you need high-tech research tools to do your work on a daily basis. If I should go back to Nigeria, for instance, now, I'm not sure there are a number of universities back home that even offer molecular neuroscience or neuroscience in itself. So what TED Fund could do is this. If you, let's take for instance, let's say Adekunle Ajasi University, you send out about 50 lecturers. Instead of sending out 50 lecturers every year, you could send out 49. Now the 50th number, you could use that funding. So let's say the funding is about 30 million naira, or let's say 40 million. You could use that 40 million to build a well-equipped standard laboratory within the Faculty of Life Sciences. Then the next year again, you drop one individual, you build a standard, well-equipped laboratory for Faculty of Engineering. So you keep doing that every single year. By the time people like us return back to Nigeria and to these same tertiary institutions, we know that we are coming to a well-equipped facility whereby all the skills we've acquired here can be put into meaningful use. That is one. Then secondly, education is not cheap. We have to be clear about this. Education is not cheap. Here in Scotland, I think the government offers about £7,000 to students. That is free education for students. In England, it's about £9,000. So if you do the conversion in Nigeria, you know what the money is exactly. Although these students do have access to loans. So we need to be clear here that education is not cheap, and to get quality education, it requires huge amount of responsibility, both on the part of the citizens and on the part of the government. Then thirdly, I also want to advocate that when it comes to addressing these challenges, we need to speak to our own colleagues back home. We need to understand that research within tertiary institutions is not for promotion's sake. Research within tertiary institutions should be geared towards solving pertinent issues within the society. What we have in Nigeria are people that have just one table. I'm not trying to generalize now, but a majority of the research we see is that you see a few tables on a paper published just like that. And not just that alone, these works are published in pediatric journals around the world, fishing journals. You see people publishing in Pakistan, in India, in just normal journals that you and I are just the sole ownership of these journal houses. But because our work is all about promotion, we don't really care exactly if that particular piece of work is beneficial to the society. So we need to ensure that our research are beneficial to the society and not for promotion's sake. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter. So you talked about something very important, because as a follow-up to the word innovation, you talked about something, how we can begin to do an effective resource allocation such that we are not putting the entire money on sending people out. A fraction of it, we are retaining them to actually build something for as infrastructure. And then in your conclusion, you said that education that we should get it clear that is not cheap. So will you suggest that since we want quality education for everybody in this country, because according to UN Charter, it's a right for everybody. So if we say we want education for everybody, is Nigeria right for education loan? And financial institutions in Nigeria, are they looking at that? Because I'm unaware that there are banks in Nigeria that can give you education loan and you pay back when you get a job, because they're not sure when you're going to get a job. So can we also look at that complexity? I don't know. This question is an open question. If you are ready, if you think you can have something to say about this, please, you can just quickly maybe show your hand, but I would prefer if Dr. Peter take a lead on this before I get back to others.
Thank you. I knew you were going to ask this question after my last submission. So basically, the issue of Nigerian is really complex. And the tertiary education is just one fraction or one segment of it all. To answer that question, it needs to start from the bottom up. So the government needs to take deliberate effort to fix the social system. So take, for instance, right now we have minimum wage at 30,000 naira. That is nothing. Then for assistant lecturer, I think they start their payment at somewhere around 110. That is nothing again. In fact, the high saw is for a PhD. A PhD holder in Nigeria, in Nigerian universities, is about 250, 260 after tax. That is nothing again. So if you really want to jack up the tuition fee, it's not now. So you need to have a kind of roadmap, let's say a 5-year roadmap, whereby you start fixing the infrastructure, you start equipping your lecturer. So if I come to a tertiary institution and the caliber of people you have are nothing to write home about, why will I pay for such services? So to address that angle, you need to start working on your internal mechanism. All the lecturers should be up to date. The research facility will be there. So this proposal may take 10 years before we hit that particular point you're looking for, whereby we can give loans. So while the government are trying to set up their institutions, they are also working with other relevant agencies to ensure that, okay, when you intend to give loans, this and this and this must be in place. You could copy models from the UK, from the US, and all around the world. But this is not just something we can achieve just tomorrow. No, that's not. It's not just an immediate solution. It's a long-term solution I'm preferring here.
Thank you so much for that contribution, Dr. Peter. Do we have any other contribution from either Dr. Rotimi or Dr. Gideon on that?
To just quickly add something to that, am I on the floor?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So pretty much, I think we need to go back to the basics. And that has been the problem we have with most of everything in Nigeria. We have a wound. Instead of trying to treat the wound, we want to put a band-aid over it just to do a quick solution. And this will not work. See, I want to just talk briefly about a little bit of history. When formal education came to Nigeria, or maybe to Africa as a whole, people do not want to get into it. People are trying to prevent their children from going into it. But with a little bit of persuasion and incentive and things like that, there was a bit of paradigm shift whereby people start thinking, oh, education is good, and we need to start pushing people to be educated. Now, the next thing we need is another form of paradigm shift whereby we try to treat education as something essential and not necessary. I will try to put it to you. In the community where I grew up, people go to school not to go and learn, but so that their parent will be able to say, oh, my child is in school. This is not good, because that makes everyone to want to just get education, but not get the type of education that will actually solve our problem. And if your education cannot solve a problem, then there is no point in getting educated or just trying to pad the statistics. So we need to start going back to the basics and start letting people know that getting an education is for you to solve a particular problem, probably around you. And if you are not doing that, then your education is wasted. That's the first thing. And another thing we should start thinking about is this is not going to be a sprint. It's going to be a marathon. We can't just fix things the way it is. The first thing we are going to first of all do is we already accept that this thing is bad. Our structure is not good. Now, the next thing is, how do we try to make the structure? If you look at most civilized countries in the West, their education system did not get better all of a sudden. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, precept upon precept, step by step. We know we are behind, but maybe we should start making those steps now, because if we don't start making those steps now, then in the next 50 years, we still be exactly where we are now. I would have said, oh, maybe if we started 50 years ago, we would have gone a bit far. I would just like to stop at that point.
Thank you very much. So to round up this particular question, this particular session of I would like Mr. Gideon, when you want to make your own contribution, he raised something very significant by saying that it's not important to just go to school to make up the numbers, but to acquire education that can actually affect the community or the society at large. Would you say, when you are giving your contribution, would you say Nigeria is ready for a curriculum overhaul? Because if you say, I go to school and I acquire a particular set of knowledge that's outdated, that is not in tune with modern realities, can you blame that on the student or on the people who are developing the curriculum that is being taught in Nigerian universities? So what is your take on that, sir, Dr. Gideon?
Thank you, Mr. Boboye. So what we have all agreed here today is that Nigeria education system needs to be revamped. Without that, we cannot do anything. So like Dr. Peter mentioned, we have to draw a roadmap maybe a 10 years roadmap, how we want to revamp educational system in Nigeria. And to the question of the curriculum, now is the time for us to review the curriculum from primary to secondary to tertiary institutions. We have to revamp the curriculum because the curriculums we have are outdated and they cannot equip students to face the current challenges of this fourth industrial revolution. So we have to look at changing the curriculum. For instance, in primary school, in secondary school, they should start learning coding because the world is moving digital. And if up to secondary school, children can still not lay their hands on codes, that means we are not doing well. This is what is obtainable in every part of the world. But in Nigeria, we have curriculums that have been put there for the past 20, 30 years, not addressing the current challenges in the society, and not equipping our students for the challenges ahead of them. So that is number one. Number two, like I said, we have to retrain the teachers so that, because some of them are not, it will interest you to note that even in the tertiary institutions, there are lecturers that don't know how to use digital platforms. They don't have access to e-libraries. So we have to retrain the teachers. We have to make available all the tools, the digital tools they need, access to e-learning environment, access to network bandwidth that is good, and all of these things. I agree that government alone cannot do it. So we need to draw a roadmap to bring private enterprises in funding education.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And I like the concluding part that government alone cannot do it. However, on the issue of roadmap, we know Nigeria have a penchant for not following roadmap. It's a known fact. It's not in any way, so sometimes things happen that are peculiar to people, but I think that sometimes we have to look at ways of announcing the best out of who we really are. So instead of looking for a roadmap, can we, like you have said, that government alone cannot do it? How can we begin to look at how to activate other agencies, youth-led agencies, CSO organizations, faith-based organizations, CBO organizations, community-based organizations, and then begin to activate them? Because Nigeria has a youth population, and they constitute at least 60% of that population. And then on internet usage, Twitter, Facebook, all of these things, we have a lot of Nigerians on there. So how do we begin to, can we creatively come in on innovation now? What can individuals do? I know it's, like I've said, maybe it might be too small, but can a coalition be formed? So as, just like an intervention coalition, that everybody is collaborating with government, because if you leave this to government alone, trust me, those guys in government have 1 million one things on their table. Education is just one of them. So how do we, can we create a general advocacy, a general mobilization mechanism around this, such that individuals, organizations, youth-led organizations, NGOs are doing their bit to ensure that this current realities is addressed, and we set in place a new reality that will be a new order for the future of Nigeria, so that we can see the Nigeria we all hope for. So what do you have to say to that, Dr. Peter?
So for the roadmap, We just have to have a roadmap that is clear. Now, I beg to disagree that our government may lack the capacity to get this through. I beg to disagree with that. I also beg to disagree with the fact that we do not really need to bring the public partnership just yet, because we've not exhausted all of the options within the government. The key problem is this: we have the wrong people in the right places. The wrong people in the right places. So if you really want to fix the educational system, like I said in the opening remark, I said I will focus on the tertiary, because you could also use the same model at the basic level. But at the tertiary level, take for instance, who is the current minister of education in Nigeria? What are his qualifications? Not just that, what is his passion for education? Who is the Minister for State of Education? You saw the mirage that happened recently, where one said we're going to open up by August. The other said no one is going anywhere. So there's a miscommunication already just for communication alone. Now, when you talk about budgets, despite we have a little fraction of budget coming into these tertiary institutions, what have we been able to do with that little fraction of budgets? So I'll give you another example. So I schooled in Abuja University in Edo State. There's a current VC who is on board right now. The guy has gone on massive infrastructural development. And when he was asked, where did you get this funding from? He said there's something called the Presidential Tax Something Intervention Funds, which he tapped into. These fundings are there, but we do not have the right people with the right skills or the right frame of mind to assess this funding. Why? Because the educational system is not their top priority. What is their top priority is politics. So the first thing we need to do, get the right people from the level of the Minister of Education in place, get the right guy at NUC, Nigerian University Commission, and get the right guys for vice chancellors, dean of faculties, and HODs. When you have these right people from top to bottom, I bet you, with a little 2 or 5% from the government into education, and with TED fund, you will see there will be a drastic change within our tertiary institutions. But people we have now are people that you send a professor a WhatsApp message, you will need to call him and say, Prof, can you check your WhatsApp? I sent you a message. You have people who are in power, ordinary PowerPoint they cannot develop by themselves. You have people whose research, when you look at the statistics they use in analyzing their data, is barely rubbish. You have people who, when it comes to presentation of what they know, they can't deliver at all. So when you have this kind of people, what do you create? Now people go out there and start screaming that Nigerian graduates are unemployable. Of course, you can't give what you don't have. So if you don't have, you can't give it. So what you can't give, you don't expect someone else to produce it in equal light. So basically, fix these layers of our system and see the education system on the right path to glory. That's just my take.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter, for that insightful contribution. I quite agree with you that there's no way we can actually move our education sector forward in isolation of the people that actually are the administrator of that particular sector, from the top down to the bottom of the pyramid. So thank you so much for that contribution. I would like to move on from that particular question and then quickly ask, right now, the argument on the street, everywhere, on everybody's lips is, when will it be safe to reopen school? Is it safe and good, okay now to open the schools? So I would like to ask Dr. Rotimi Fasime, if we must, if it is yes, what are the measures that needs to be put in place? If it is no, what are your reasons for no, or saying no? So I would like to hear from you, Dr. Rotimi.
Thank you once again. So the short answer is we are not ready yet to open up. That's just the short answer without mincing word. Now, can we still, the question should be, can we still continue educating our students while not in school? Maybe yes. But the fact that, see, a lot of things, the news I get online and everywhere about what is going on in Nigeria regarding COVID-19 is not encouraging at all. And these are the ones that we are seeing. There are a lot of deaths based on COVID-19 that we are not reporting at the moment, but people refuse to see it as that. So imagine allowing those students to go back and feel like nothing is happening. We are just going to start seeing people dying. And like Melinda Gates rightly said some times ago, if this thing continues to fester, you might start seeing people laying dead on the street. I know people don't believe that COVID-19 is real, even up to now. That's the feeling I get from the street. But the truth is, we cannot wish away the truth. It is real. Now, for me, I wouldn't want to dwell too much on the tertiary part of our education system, because I'm always the type that believe in the bottom to the top to solve issues. And the first thing I would like us to start thinking of, how can we ensure that these younger generations, the primary school students, the secondary school students, how are they going to continue to be educated while still at home? What can we do to make sure that they don't lose interest in education? Because at the stand, we don't actually know when this is going to end. So how can we ensure that they are still participating educationally? And I will try to talk about 2 or 3 points that I believe we could do, and at least to make sure this thing goes forward. And the most important part is for us to have a very good internet or IT services, which we don't have. And I will leave that to maybe Dr. Gideon to talk about that, on how to solve that issue. But moving forward, the first thing we should try to do is to incentivize education at home. And what do I mean by incentivizing? While I was little growing up in Ondo State, there used to be some programs on TV and even on radio whereby the educators, maybe mathematics or English or something like that, that people try to key into and just to learn after school. Now, people don't get too excited about these things because it is not incentivized. But imagine you trying to bring something up whereby people can do some things and get something in return. This can make students to start thinking, oh, maybe we can try to key into this thing. And I know what people will say. People will say that, oh, most of us will not want to key into it. But the truth is this: there are some that wants to learn. Let us focus on those that want to learn and not try to desensitize them. Those that don't want to learn, we can leave them, but at least let's focus on those that want to learn. So the first thing is try to incentivize all these programs, let people start key into it, and let them start getting something a bit. It might not be too much, but something little. And another thing I want us to talk about is radio program that we can reach into rural areas. We should start thinking about this. Not all those rural areas have IT facilities. Not all of them have phones. But I can assure you, as someone that has lived in the north before and some rural areas down south, virtually every household has a radio. So we can start penetrating a little bit through that means as well, to start bringing something, maybe mathematics or English, just something to keep them involved in education. And the last thing I think we should do is, if at all we are going to try to bring things into open, or maybe we want to open schools, then we should start thinking about starting what I call shift schooling. So a shift schooling is such a way, because we know that most of these schools are already overpopulated and overcrowded. So what I want us to start doing is, let's try to see, okay, how can we make sure that people will come in the morning, and some will come in the afternoon, and some will come in the evening. This particular type of schooling is already a little bit prevalent in the north. I can say that because while I was serving in the north, I have some teachers that do go in the morning to go and teach some set of students, and go in the evening to teach some set of students. We can bring this into our being and try to partition those students. If you have to come, if a class is having 60 students, let's divide them into 3. 20 will come in the morning, and whatever we could teach them, the most important part of the education, mathematics, English, and a little bit of science for those that want it. Let's teach them within those time frame and allow the other ones to come in. I think I would like to stop at that point.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rotimi, for that contribution. your suggestions are beautiful, and I think they look at especially the issue of the radio. It has the potential of reaching the underserved communities, especially in the rural areas. And given the fact that internet penetration is not 100% across the nation, especially in the local areas. So, and then the next question that people usually, the next thing people usually raise is the issue of accessibility, affordability, and the infrastructure itself. And then we also know that internet too is not something that is it can be better. I wouldn't say we don't have it, we have it, but it can be better here as well. And then on the issue of a shift schooling that you talked about, it's a wonderful idea, but I'm just the only question that somebody will ask is, how will the teachers cope if I have to teach in the morning, in the afternoon, or at night? Would they have to recruit another teacher? What will happen? So all of these are questions that I think we need to ask ourselves when we because on this platform, I know people are listening to us. Whatever solution we are giving to them at Fat Corner, they must be able to see it as something that is not just it is practical. You can practice it. It can be deployed. So that is that about that. Moving on, I would like to. I don't know, Mr. I keep saying Mr. Dr. I wouldn't know whether you would like to corroborate whether Nigerian schools, Nigeria, especially the secondary schools, the primary schools, are we ready for reopening? Are we ready for reopening?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I totally agree with Dr. Rotimi that we are not ready yet to reopen the schools, because I don't think it's safe for the teachers and for the students. So we are not ready yet. And like Dr. Rotimi pointed out, we can actually do remote teaching, but it's not going to be a general solution for the country. So each state, each communities, each schools, they have to look at their peculiar situation and decide on which of this method of remote teaching is okay, is applicable, or is implementable for them. So they have to think about, do they have the technologies for doing virtual learning? If they don't have, can they schedule dedicated radio programs? So each schools have to look at a localized solution, but these solutions have to be coordinated by the respective Ministry of Education in that state, or the Central Ministry of Education for federal government schools. So we have to look at all these things. I was shocked when WAEC announced that they announced their examination date. It doesn't look realistic to me, because they have not even come up with guidelines to make sure that if students have to resume back to school, they also need to observe social distancing, the regular cleaning of hands. They have to come up with guidelines for examination invigilation, guidelines for teaching, all the surfaces, how they will be cleaning them. Is there is the school in hygienic? Are the schools in good hygienic position conditions for academic activities to resume? So they didn't think about all these things before announcing that the school should resume. Another point I want to make is that the National Union of Teachers, Academic Staff Union of Universities, Association, Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, they all have responsibilities they must make. They don't just, because what I see with ASU is that they just sit down, criticize the government, declare the next strike and say the government, that what are they doing in their own level to make sure that we put all these necessary things in place. For instance, during the accreditation exercise, you see a situation where the academics, they collude with the management of their schools to put a fake list of facilities that are not there, to put a fake list of lecturers that they don't have, just for them to have that accreditation. And that has not helped the system over the years. So over the years, we don't have the facilities. We put a fake list that we have them, we get the accreditation, then the next month we declare a strike, and then we shut the school for 6 months saying that those facilities are not there. So all these unions and every stakeholders in the education, they have to take responsibilities to make sure that we are doing the right thing for us to salvage the worst education crisis in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon, for your contribution. To wrap this up, for us to have an holistic view, I like the fact that we have looked at this resumption plan in terms of the policymaker, government, and other agencies that are responsible. But I think one important element of it that we are not looking at is the family. Because COVID has affected everybody. I want to talk before we move to the next question, which is like the last question for today's edition of this program. Okay. So the first thing I want to merge together is the issue of the family, the financial, the economic situation and reality of the family. As most homes, most businesses are already affected. As we know that majority of the people who are not in Nigeria are actually probably doing private practice and stuff like that. And they are already affected because of COVID. That means we all know that the issue of electricity power has been a notorious problem, though it's becoming better now. So when we say we want to use radio and stuff like that, if you then need to charge them, there's no light you need to buy all of those things. If it's a battery, if it's a transistor radio, you need to buy battery, you need money to consistently buy them. All of these are challenges. So how will this reopening, all these plans that we are talking about, what effect, how will families cope with it? Also, on this online remote learning, data has said that, especially in Lagos and some other states, where schools of children of a certain class who afford to go online and studying online, enrollment login attendance has been put at 60%. That means 6 out of 10 of their normal students are the one attending the classes online now. So for that is for schools, because some schools are actually in session, they are going as it were, because they have deployed, they have the tools, they have the infrastructure, but they require that only 60% of their students attend classes on a daily basis. So looking at these two information and then the reopening plan, I want you to help us situate them together, and then this, what others contributors have raised and say concerning what we need to do about reopening. So because I wouldn't want us to leave anyone out. So how do we address this? How best can we address this?
For me, schools should just close for the year. That's just the plain truth. I know it's a hard talk, but that's just the point blank talk. So I'll give you an example. Most countries that are trying to open up at all, they've done more than 1% test of their population. Check the statistics. Most countries that are trying to open up, they've done more than 1% of their total population test in terms of COVID-19 test. What is the percentage of tests we've done in Nigeria is abysmal, is nothing. We've not 1% of our population, we've not even hit that particular benchmark at all. So when it comes to COVID-19, we know that we have, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we have 9.6 million people who are within the ages of 60 and above in Nigeria. Now, children are the vehicle to transport this virus to their respective homes. So you do not come to the mainstream media and announce that you intend to open up schools and open up the airways because Ghana is doing the same thing, South Africa is doing the same thing, UK is doing the same thing. You don't do that because you've not done the right things yet. We've not tested at all. So why are we trying to just jump the gun because people are opening up their schools? So for me, schools should remain closed. Now, the issue Dr. Rotimi talked about and Dr. Gideon, when he talked about the remote learning, let's not fool ourselves. So I'll give you a practical example, but I will not mention the name of the university. It's a highly ranked private university in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, they do their teaching through Telegram. So they send, the lecturer type messages on Telegram and send, then the student responds to the same message. So imagine the level of impact when it comes to that. When it comes to the remote learning using radio stations and what have you, how do you commit a child who is between 5 years to 10 to sit on the paper and write 2 + 4 or 5 + this when you need physical presence to guide these children through? That is 2. 3, let's not forget that these children's psychology is at stake. So you give a little boy of 12 years old or 10-year-old a face mask to go into the school. Do you know that there is already psychological effect on that child? I heard the other time, the minister was saying that they will have to put these children on open field to write examination as far as WAEC is concerned. Do you know the impact of putting a child in an open field to write an examination? Also, when you look at the same students again, you are trying to bring them on board for examinations. Do you know that the temperature screening we are doing, we can actually miss people who are COVID-19 positive because Nigerians are known for self-medication. And what the thermometer does is to reduce the body, is to check for the body temperature. When you take ibuprofen, paracetamol, it brings down your body temperature. When I come to the school gate and my temperature is taken, you will get 35, whereas apparently I'm 38, 39. Even a qPCR machine equally missed positive cases when you test too early. So what then, where are we rushing to exactly? Because if we open up, the reason why I want to open up again is this. It is clear that we do not even believe the seriousness of COVID-19. If the government are aware how serious this virus is, we'll be pushing for opening because we've not even done 1% of our population. So for me, life comes before any form of education or examination. So the schools should remain closed as far as COVID-19 is concerned for now. That's just my opinion. And with that, you don't need to stress the parents anymore for trying to put them on TV or give them resources to. The bandwidth when it comes to the internet is nothing to write home about also. We know people who struggle on day-to-day basis to get their internet to run. You have people using MTN, Glo, and Etisalat just to get internet connection. So you want to put parents at that same level of commitment when the minimum wage is just 30,000 naira. So for me, school opening should be closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peter, for that insightful and precise contribution. Before we round up, so I have this question that I'm trying to put together for us. It will go around. It's more of share your opinion. So a lot of things has come out of our conversation today, and we've talked about curriculum, we've talked about the quality of our teachers, and then we've talked about, you did talk about the welfare that the package that lecturers are earning is not even enough, it's not motivating enough for them to actually give their best. So I would like to ask, and I remember when we're starting this conversation, we're all in agreement that whatever we want to profound as solution has to be a long-term plan. And then another thing that you said about lecturers publishing something in certain journals and stuff like that. I'm just looking. So we are looking at all of these things. So the first question is this: what can government do? So I'm going to ask the 3 or 4 questions together, and then we are going to answer them individually. Is that okay by us? Yes. The first question is this: on the issue of curriculum, what should be done? moving forward. We know we've agreed that there's need for us, because if you are looking at the future of work and the skills that are required to function in that particular future, things that are not in our curriculum. These are areas that we need to talk about. How can we improve the quality of our lecturers and our teachers, even at entry point when we are bringing them in? What can we do to ensure that the quality of what you are getting, because you cannot outperform the quality of what you are. So, and then we also look at the welfare, because when you get quality in every organization, to retain value, you have to give value. How do we ensure that their welfare are taken care of? Is it by increasing salary or by government tweaking the economy such that the value of money can be improved, such that with what you are earning now, you can do so much with it? Or do we just do more money? Or should we just look at something that we can tweak in our microeconomics to actually allow us to, with what we are earning now, but to do so much with it? And finally, we talk about lecturers needing to publish articles and research in international journals. Would you say it's out of place for Nigerian institutions or organizations or agencies to have a dedicated journal that can meet international standards, where some of our researches, home and abroad, can be published? So these are the questions that I want us to as our concluding questions. So these are the things I want our contributions on. I would like to go with Dr. Gideon first.
Okay, so we've identified the problems, and what we need to do at first is that all the stakeholders in the education sector, they have to realize that there is a crisis in Nigerian education system. They have to come together to draft this roadmap that we've talked about in the beginning of this talk. So for instance, the National University Commission, Tertiary Education Fund, Ministries of Education, State Ministries of Education, and all the other governmental agencies that are in charge of education at the state level. All of these stakeholders must come together and draw a roadmap to address the rot in the system. And they also have to carry along the unions, the relevant labor unions, like the ASU, ASUP, NUT, and so on and so forth. So we have to critically analyze the problem. So when they come together, they have to critically analyze the problem, gather enough data that they will work on, analyze the data, and make sure that they come up with solutions, both mid-term and long-term solutions that are feasible and that are implementable. So this will be my own contribution in this regard.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gideon. Can I have Dr. Rotimi now for his own contribution?
Okay, thank you very much. So the first thing I want to talk about is the curriculum moving forward. Really, we know the problem. The problem has always been the will to undo the problem. So this is it. We know what our problem is in Nigeria, but the bureaucracy and the politics is so much that we are not willing to tackle those problems. So the first thing is, let's start with the NUC. I don't want to focus on maybe the government should force and enforce and enforce and enforce. Let's talk about the NUC. It is high time we started gathering together, looking into what is the immediate solutions to the immediate problem bedeviling Nigeria at the moment. And let's start fixing curriculum around that. See, I want to give an example. When you go to India, they have other things that they do, but they are mainly involved in medical terms and IT. They don't bother themselves with agriculture too much. Not that they don't have land for agriculture, but they could realize that this is what our immediate need is. And they started revamping their education system based on that. And now they have very good medical system that even we travel there to go and get it. And they have good IT system that they export to other countries. The same thing with Cuba. Cuba too figured out that they need to revamp their medical system. And now most countries actually import Cuban doctors to their countries to come and help them. So what we should start at first and foremost is to start making sure that we see that what immediate problems, is it agriculture we want to focus on? Then let's start developing curriculum that could solve that problem the way it should be solved, not using Lord Lugard textbooks that was developed when the colonial masters were coming, and start using it to solve our problem. So let's look at it. Okay, how do we move forward from that? Then let's solve that problem. Then the second thing about how to motivate lecturers, to be factual, I am a lecturer too. The truth is most people that are lecturing in Nigeria do not want to lecture. They see it as a way of getting employed and not as a way of lecturing. So let's start with that. Let's start looking at how we can employ people that actually want to get employed, that actually want to lecture, that actually wants to do research, and not people that, oh, I just want, because I can't find job and I know somebody that knows the VC, and let me call the VC and the VC will employ me. This is actually what is going on with recruitment in Nigeria. And you can't do something like that and expect a different result. So you are going to continue to have this type of result if we continue our recruitment program. So let's start thinking of how to recruit people that actually want to do the work. Let's go do away with this bureaucracy and politics and work on that. And then the second thing is, let's start thinking of how we could reward brilliance in our educational system. The system is rigged against people that are brilliant to some extent. And I will give you an example as well. Within our university, you don't reward people like maybe people that are really doing so well in their classes or things like that. You don't reward them. So why don't we do that? I know people will say education should be personal, you don't have to reward people. But the truth is, the more people see that they get rewarded for being brilliant, the more they want to be brilliant, and the more they drag other people along with them, because you create this form of competition among them, and they too want to drive themselves, and this is going to drive everything forward. And also, lastly, is about the economy. See, we can't say that we want to increase the the salary package of lecturers without thinking about the economic of this thing. If you start saying that I'm going to start paying lecturers 500,000 naira per month, the truth is, where is the money going to come from? It's going to come from students that are going to be paying tuition fee. And what if students cannot pay the tuition fee? Then they can't go to school. So the truth is, if there is a way we can make our economy, I'm not an economic expert here, and I'm just going out on a limb here, but if there's a way we can bring our economy up a little bit, then maybe some of these things are going to correct themselves. And lastly, I will talk about journals. The truth is, you cannot publish in a standard journal if you don't have a standard result. And you cannot have a standard result if you don't have standard equipment. So this is the problem. So let's forget about journals publishing in high impact factor journals. Maybe Nigeria should have its own journal whereby we discuss something that is happening to us and use our own resources to publish in that journal. It shouldn't be international. And let our university recognize those things. Not that university will tell you that, oh, you have to have 3 or 4 international journals before you can get promoted. This is the problem. That is why people just go to Pakistan or whatever, what have you, and start to publish. Ghana is also international if you want to go by that standard. That means that it could be anything at all. But if we start looking at it in our own local sense, then people will start having a sense of belonging, and at least we can start making a little bit of progress from that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Rotimi, for that wonderful contribution. And I think we're on the same page. So let us hear from Dr. Peter, please. What's your take on all of this?
Thank you. I think all what Dr. Rotimi said, to be very bottom down, I agree with everything. So when it comes to the curriculum, of course, we need to revamp the curriculum itself, because the curriculum we have now, I will give you an example. There's this lecturer who, for the past 1980, has been using one lecture note to lecture across board. To the point that he lectured someone I know, and when it comes to the lecture hall, he recites everything from the brain. And this individual was telling me that, oh, this lecturer is so intelligent. he knows everything from his head. I'm like, no, 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 no. That man has crammed everything. So he has used the same lines. Oh, Dr. Gideon, Dr. Fasimoye, Dr. Oguniyi, you know. So if I keep saying this name every time and again, with time, I can say them with my eyes closed. So the curriculum, for sure, we need to revamp the curriculum. There's no big deal about that. Now, do we have the required individuals to revamp the curriculum? That's another question mark. I'll give you an example. I know a number of people within biochemistry, which is my base, who can actually work on a revamped curriculum for Nigeria. I know also Rotimi is well known in parasitology. So what you need to do is get people around the world, not just within Nigeria, around the world, sit them down according to departments. We know these guys. We're just being would I say, hypocrites. We know these guys who are really good within the system. We know them, but we don't want to give them the responsibility. So get these guys, sit them down in each department, you revamp your curriculum. You cannot revamp a curriculum to take bioinformatics when you do not have experts who can lecture bioinformatics. You cannot revamp a curriculum to take molecular biology when you do not have people who can take molecular biology. So that's another thing we need to look into. On the area of quality of teachers and lecturers, for me, you need to test the examiner. So before I bring in a lecturer, we should have a point-based system whereby the first thing you must have 50 points in these areas, not publishing because you are a fresh lecturer anyway, but you should have certain criteria. Now, when you have these criteria, who then assess those individuals is another point you need to look at. You need people also who are experts to assess these individuals before you bring in teachers and lecturers on board. When it comes to welfare, Rotimi did a justice to that also. How do you increase the lecturing salary when the inflation rate is on 2 digits? I think we're somewhere around 13 or 12%. So even though you increase my salary, my earning power will be ravished when it comes to my power of purchase, because the inflation rate is high, then I can't buy so much with what I have. So of course, the government needs to work on the economy. But having said that, that is not a yardstick for the government not to increase salary. I'll give you an example. I said to someone recently, if, for instance, you set people with PhD holders salary at 300K, I'll be the next person to be on the next flight to come to Nigeria. That's just a point blank. But if I should come to Nigeria now, they may be offering me somewhere around lecturer 2. And what is the salary of lecturer 2? It's somewhere around 140, 150. Why will I come to Nigeria to earn 140, 150 at this stage of time? I'm not going to do that. So you need to create that incentives that Dr. Rotimi have said already to attract the best brain. You need to reward people who are intelligent. And of course, he makes mention of people who come into lecturing because they're opportunists. There was nothing else to do, and that's why they are there. When it comes to publication, you've said it already. So publication, the only point I don't agree with him is when he said we should have indigenous journal houses. Yes, we can. But who will be the editor and the reviewers to review these papers? If, for instance, I know the way Dr. Fasimoye writes, or you can even call me up and say, oh, I'm sending my paper to your journal, you better allow it to pass. And I give you the credit to allow his paper to go through. The system is porous. And that is what we have currently in Nigeria. We have journal already in Nigeria, whereby people do know me, I know you, put my name, I put your name. And that is how they go around it. So of a truth, we need a self-overhaul of the system. And the only way to do that is to be true to ourselves. We need to be true to ourselves. And like Dr. Gideon earlier mentioned, he was saying that ASU, NUT need to take responsibility. And I like the point he made when he said, when it comes to accreditation, you are right. There was a school that basically brought in professors from other schools, and the NUC came to accredit this department. I know Dr. Gideon so well that is in Akungba. Then he's now telling me that he's a lecturer in Lautech. And I say, yes, you're a lecturer in Lautech. So are we not all crooks among ourselves? So we are not even ready to fix the system to start with. That's why I said the issue of trust, we need to be sincere. Is when you say, I'm sick. That is when you go to the doctor. If you're not sincere with yourself, you will die within your confinement. So of a truth, you are right. The accreditation system is wrong from the beginning. You bring in equipment from chemistry department to biochemistry. You set different dates for accreditation. When it's time for zoology department, you move equipment again to zoology department, quickly use marker to write ZOOO 101, and you get the accreditation. Then the next day you go on strike. So the bottom line for me is sincerity and truth to ourselves. Without that, we go nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I think I have enjoyed myself. I've learned one or two things, and I can say that we've all agreed that there's a problem, there's a crisis, and that it will not be out of place if the government of the day should declare emergency on our education system. Because from what we have been saying so far, it means that it shows that the problem is not a 5 years problem. It's an age-long problem that has been there over time, that COVID is only exposing how deeply rooted they have been in our system. And that if we really want to have a solution that's geared towards changing the narratives and ensuring that we have quality education that's accessible to all, and there's need for us to be sincere in carrying out an holistic overhaul of the entire structure, starting from the government to the education administrators, to the parents, to the students themselves, and generally, and then we have to look at as a people that this is a problem and that we need to fix it. And I like the fact that Dr. Rotimi said that there's need for us to change this narrative along the lines of our needs, such that we are not just developing education in general, but we are specifically paying attention to areas of comparative advantage or areas of need, where in no time, because of the law of concentration that says that if you focus on a particular thing, you become very good at it. So if we look at this and then we stop, we'll be able to improve our narratives quickly as a people. And then also, I like the contribution of Dr. Gideon, which is saying that it's that time that the NUC, the ASU, all of them are standing up for education, upholding the virtues of integrity, sincerity, and passion to actually get our education back on its feet. Because back in time, people used to come into this country for education, that we can still, it is possible for us to go back to those days. And I like the contribution of Dr. Peter about innovation and how we have to begin to look at education and begin to do things differently. And in terms of how we administer and manage education in our country. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm so sure our listeners and people that are watching this program have learned a lot of things, and then they've been able to understand, if not in the totality, but to a large extent, what's happening in our education system, what is our current situation now relating to COVID, and the way forward, our post-COVID plan, what it should look like. That everybody, all hands, should be on deck to get us moving forward. So it's on this note that I would like to, I don't know, maybe anyone has any other closing remark to say. Dr. Gideon, do you have anything to say before we close the session? Because I would like to introduce myself and then sign up.
My closing remark will be that we should know that it's not business as usual. COVID-19 has further exposed the rots in our education system. And then we have to take responsibilities across levels to salvage this situation. Otherwise, the country will continue to have these problems.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon. Dr. Rotimi, let's hear from you, your own closing remark.
My closing remark is like to tell everybody that COVID-19 is real. For people that believe it is not real because they've not seen someone that has it, I will also tell you that you've not seen hair before, but you could feel it, and you believe there is hair. You've not seen God, and you believe it, and you've not seen people with HIV/AIDS, but you believe it. So you need to also believe that COVID-19 is real. And lastly, I would just say that we need to start thinking of education as the next oil that we have. Maybe we start seeing it as where we could better our lives, make money, and effect a lot of changes, we start spending much more money, just as the way we spend money on oil. Thank you very much.
Dr. Peter, let's hear from you.
My closing remark is really simple. We need to be sincere to ourselves. We need to be truthful to ourselves. Everything rise and fall on leadership. And when there's no trust and sincerity in leadership, you have people who are then doubting Thomas. So the reason why people are not buying into COVID-19 in the first place in Nigeria is because of the element of trust that has been eroded over decades of our country. So for me, that same trust needs to kind of trickle down from the level of presidency up to the level of a classroom teacher in a nursery school. Until a classroom teacher knows that if you are not present at 7 o'clock, no one should sign you in, then we know that we have a problem. If classroom teachers can by themselves be accountable for their own actions, then we have the right way and we're in the right direction to go. So for me, it's all about sincerity and truthfulness. And with that, Nigeria will get back in track. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And from me, I would like to say, to know the future of a country, check their plan for your education. So, because the future of the country are the younger ones that are being educated now. If you don't educate them, the future of that country is not educated. The entire world is spending billions to prepare their own children for a better future. Our children are going to compete with them because we are now in a global world. So that is just a food for thought for everybody that is listening to this particular broadcast. Please, it is important that we all take and see education as bedrock for building a better Nigeria. Because without it, it will be totally difficult to do so. And to do it, our panelists have been able to explain to us all the things that we need to do. So thank you so much, everyone. I really enjoyed myself. It's been a wonderful time. I've had the pleasure of hosting these beautiful minds, and I do not take it for granted. My name once again is Boboye Adeniji Oluwafemi. I'm the managing partner of Pest Consulting. So thank you once again, everyone.
Thank you.